Realtors President. On behalf of our nearly 11,000 GCAR members and affiliates, I want to welcome you, and especially the three candidates, to the Montgomery County Executive Debate. GCAR is one of the largest local associations in the U.S. We promote and protect private property rights and advocate professional and ethical service to the public and our members. The importance and impact of the real estate industry in Montgomery County is significant. We support smart regulation, affordable housing, public safety, a competitive tax structure, strong schools, improved infrastructure, and the American dream of home ownership for all county residents. Realtors realize there's a cost to maintaining a strong county and lifestyle. Realtors seek to work with our leaders to assist in ways that meet the challenges of the county executive, the city council, and for its county's residents. We want our industry to be treated equitably and not to be singled out as a single financing source for every county initiative. We simply seek a seat at the table and an opportunity to work with the council and the county executive on major initiatives and direction. We look forward to a spirited conversation today on the views of these candidates and the impact they may have on Montgomery County. I'm now pleased to introduce our moderator. Will Thomas is a familiar face to most of us, having been a co-anchor of Fox News in DC for the past 19 years.
A little more than 19.
Okay, well, Will is a two-time Emmy Award winner and respected journalist both locally and nationally. Just recently, Will has begun a new chapter in his career, becoming not only a realtor but a GCAR member. So welcome to the family, Will. His passion and experience in the real estate business over the last decade or so really have been poised for a successful career in real estate going forward. Will's next going to introduce our candidates and outline the format for the debate. So with that, ladies and gentlemen, Will Thomas.
Thank you, Tom. I will just start by standing and say welcome to the general election season, where the county executive race here in Montgomery County is certainly interesting, right? It's the first time in many years where the Democratic primary hasn't decided this one, right? So you have a council member who is a Democrat, you have a council member who left the Democratic Party, who runs as unaffiliated, and a Republican who now has access to matching public funds. I will say right from the start, if you can turn off your cell phones, our friends at GCAR will appreciate it. I also want to say, just a disclosure, while I do wear my journalism hat this morning, the questions were prepared by our great team at GCAR, which I am a proud member of as well. So with that, we'll get started and I'll introduce the candidates. Here we go. We have Councilmember Mark Elrich, the Democrat. And you can applaud. Attorney Robert Ficker, the Republican nominee. And Councilmember Nancy Florine, unaffiliated. The rules are pretty simple here, and all the candidates, just give me a nod. You did agree to this in advance, right? Okay. It's the same question pretty much for each candidate, so you'll all have a crack at it. Only one question will change just slightly, and you'll understand why, but not a big deal. You have 90 seconds to answer the question. If anyone should feel they need to have a rebuttal, you have 45 seconds. We have timers here with signs that'll let you know, kind of count you down. This isn't the presidential debate, so I'll be easy on you if you go just a little bit over, but we want to try to get through as many questions as possible. You have 3 minutes for opening remarks and 3 minutes for closing remarks. We did draw straws, and the order will be Ms. Florine, Mr. Ficker, and then Mr. Elrich. So we'll begin with opening remarks from Mrs. Florine. Take it away.
Thank you. Well, first of all, thank you all for coming out today. And I will say we do not draw straws.
Sticks, right?
We drew environmentally sensitive.
There you go.
But I am very privileged to be able to stand on this stage. As you know, we blew it out of the water with a petition campaign that 20,000 residents signed. And that's because, in my view, this is a very important election for Montgomery County. Where are we going? Are we going to go forward? Or are we going to continue to argue about things we've been arguing about for the past 30 years? That's the decision you all are asked to make. And that's why I've made this into a real general election. We've never had it before. This is historic to have a real conversation, and I think it's the right time for the right conversation. I have a great vision for Montgomery County. My number one objective is to grow our economy, to support our businesses who are here and attract new investment. Because let me tell you people, if we do not do that, your taxes are going to go up. People are going to leave. They're already leaving. We need to remind people of what our resources are, what we offer, and that's how we're going to keep our tax base. That is how we're going to support our jewel in the crown, MCPS, and that's how we're going to continue to deliver the great services Montgomery County is known for. I've been in leadership positions on the council for the past 16 years. Before that, as mayor of Garrett Park, I've chaired innumerable committees, the Washington Air Quality Committee. I worked with Barbara Mikulski. I have led all kinds of groups throughout Montgomery County. I spent years working as a civic activist and as a member of the planning board. I know this county through and through. And what I know is this is a great place, but we need to remember that entrepreneurship, creativity, and who we are, supporting our community, is going to create a great future for us. A couple of things that are my priorities is to turn this center really into a world-class educational resource center. I think for a real four-year institution that's not just a coupled-together effort, but a real four-year institution is going to put Montgomery County on the map, just as George Mason has done in Northern Virginia. Next, why not think, we need to think bigger about transportation. We need a regional transportation authority. It's been kicked around over the years, but at the end of the day, last I looked, our people are commuting across borders, and we need to recognize that. We need to do creative things like extending bus service up to Frederick City, up to Columbia, not just thinking inside Montgomery County. We are not an island. My time is up. I look forward to talking some more about these great ideas.
Ladies and gentlemen, fellow GCAR members, welcome to our debate. I'm the only candidate in this race who is a member of GCAR. The only member in this race who is a licensed Maryland real estate broker. I can tell you that if either one of my opponents is elected, you're going to be getting another 30% increase in your real estate transfer tax. You're going to be getting another 9% increase in your property tax. I testified, I was there with you, testifying against that 30% increase in the real estate transfer tax, which was heard before the council as an emergency measure. And so it was an emergency to try to put you out of business, is what it was. It imposed a high barrier to minorities who were trying to get out of stuffed apartments into single-family homes or places where you had a backyard where the kids could play. And I testified against that measure. I was there standing with you. My opponents voted for it. Don't forget that. Property taxes. In 2006, when my opponent to the left was on the council, the county budget increased 11% with a big tax increase. Then, when Mr. Elrick and I started running for county executive, I ran for county executive in 2006. He was running for council with his eye on the executive seat. I ran with a platform of no property tax increases. In 2007, my two opponents voted for another property tax increase. The county budget increased 11% in 1 year, and in 2008, they both voted for a county budget that increased 14% in 1 year after two previous 11% increases. but I was ready for them, fighting for you. I had a question on the ballot to require a unanimous council vote for the council to increase property tax revenue more than the rate of inflation. Every elected official opposed it. It passed with your help, and it stopped property tax increases in 2009, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, until in 2016 they found a way around it, and unanimously. And these two folks were the deciding votes for an unnecessary 9% property tax increase, which was 5 times the rate of inflation. I stand with you in opposing property tax increases.
Mr. Picker, thank you. Mr. Wallace,
First of all, thank you all for putting this on today, and I look forward to your questions. Property taxes. One thing I'll say about GCAR, you all have been actually outstanding supporters of the county budget. If anybody has understood why we spend money, why we raise taxes, it's because you're looking to us to provide first-class schools, to deal with transportation issues, and make this county a place where people want to live. And so I've always been happy to work with GCAR because I think we have an enormous synergy when it comes to quality of life issues in Montgomery County. I've been a champion of responsible development. I don't believe that simply increasing the heights of buildings or density actually creates economic development. We've zoned for a lot of development in Montgomery County. We actually have enough commercial space zoned to handle all of the projected development through 2045. What brings it here isn't just the zoning, but it's economic activity. And what this county needs to look at, I think, going forward is how are we more proactive, and how do we do a better job, not on the real estate side of development with the big developers, how do we do a better job in economic development and bringing people here? We're sitting on 10 million square feet of empty commercial space. It's the same 10 million square feet that we were sitting on when I came into office. And all our zoning changes and everything else hasn't budged. 10 million square feet is enough to hold 40 to 60,000 jobs. And so you've got to ask yourself, what's the right strategy, and have we been on the right path? I think, and I supported Nancy when she created the Economic Development Group. I thought that was the right thing to do. I thought our economic development, the way it was done in the county, was absolutely backwards. And when it came under attack, I supported continuing it because I didn't think they'd had enough time to demonstrate what they can do. And if you look at the report they put out a couple of days ago, they have begun to generate a fair number of small businesses between over 500 employees, lots of businesses between 300 and 500. They're actually doing the kind of things that we want them to do. But I think we need to do more. And one of the things that struck me as the most obvious thing, we keep hearing from people that Montgomery County is an unfriendly place to do business. And we've never actually done the work that we need to do to find out, are we unfriendly or aren't we? So I've talked with Sidney Katz, a lot of you know him, and what we've asked him to do, I've asked him to do, is to chair a committee with business people to benchmark Montgomery County's processes against every other jurisdiction in the region. I want to look at what does Montgomery County do that other jurisdictions do? What do we do that other jurisdictions don't do? Are our fees in line with other jurisdictions? And if they're not in line, we're going to bring them in line. And I want to treat businesses that are trying to expand to look at what are the requirements in the code when you're occupying existing space that's gone vacant. What are the code requirements that we put people through? Again, we're going to benchmark that against other jurisdictions and try to adopt a common sense approach. Thank you.
Hey, I think we're off to a good start. Everyone's pretty much keeping the time, don't you think? Yeah. We got opening statements out of the way. Guys, Ms. Florian said, the draw of the environmentally safe statistics puts you first, ma'am, with the first question. You'll all receive the same one. And we'll start out with an easy one, probably won't need rebuttals. And this is the following. What is your favorite small local business in Montgomery County and why?
Wow.
Not a trick question.
Am I starting?
Yes, you are.
I have to make a confession. It's a really small business.
That's okay.
It's the Corned Beef King.
See, I knew we'd start out with some fun. Good for you. And why?
It's accessible. Hank Diedel's burned down. they're coming back. Yay! But the Corned Beef King took up, it's a food truck operation, which is in the Montgomery County way, a creative entrepreneurship event, because now they're located in the Liberty gas station, which is conveniently located on Rockville Pike. So you can do multiple things at the same time. You can fill up. I think you can get your car serviced. You can buy a couple bananas and get it's really good pastrami.
Very good.
It's very, very small. And I will say that's a good example of what we have done to make it easier for new ideas to operate and function in Montgomery County. You know, we need to be nimble, we need to be creative, and we don't need to make history as to how business friendly we have all been. But with that particular initiative, we've seen a guy with a truck turn it into a nice little entrepreneurial effort. And I'm guessing before too long, they're getting their own place outside the gas station. Although I hear there's a really good, I think it's a Korean restaurant and another gas station in Wheaton. So maybe that's the trend of the future.
Maybe so.
Make sure our rules permit that.
Well, it's a fun question to start out, but certainly you can see why GCAR would want us to ask this question, because small businesses are the backbone of any community, including Montgomery County. Mr. Ficker, same question for you, sir. Your favorite local small business in Montgomery County and why? 90 seconds.
Well, I could answer that in a couple ways. I like McDonald's. I go there to catch a quick bite because I'm always hustling. My 2009 Ford Escape Hybrid's got 430,000 miles on it. I was in court this morning, arrived here just as you started. I have to go to Leisure World and campaign there after this particular meeting. I'm moving around, so I don't have time to sit down and be a foodie. I'm going to grab something on the go and meet with the average person that goes to McDonald's. I also like Robin Ficker Law Offices, which has been in existence since 1982. I've completed 35,000 cases in Maryland courts. The life of the county goes through the courthouse. I like Robin Realty, or a real estate brokerage, which has sold a few houses here in the county. But, you know, we haven't been getting small businesses in Montgomery County. When I'm county executive, that's going to change. Term limits was a vote for change. It was a vote to make some changes in the county government, and when you've been in the county council for 12 or 16 years, you don't represent change. I'm the only one who does. We're going to bring about some changes, and we're going to bring in another relatively small business, depending how you look at it, Amazon HQ2. We're going to bring that into Montgomery County, and they're going to love it here because we're not going to over-regulate them, and we're not going to raise their taxes.
Thank you, Mr. Ficker. My Amazon question is coming. I promise. All right, take it away.
So there are a few small businesses. Like I say, Nick's Diner in Wheaton is one of my favorite small businesses. Nick's has been there a long time, and I've got a lot of friends who go there. It's a nice place to have a meeting if you're down in the mid-county. And he's not open all day long. I mean, he does his business through breakfast and lunch, and then he's not there, not operating in the evening. But I had an experience with Nick's where the county inspectors came in and said, you have to change your bathroom. Because for 40 years, people have been walking behind this counter and making a right turn into the bathroom in the kitchen, and our inspectors suddenly decided that he had to cut a wall on the outside of his bathroom, which meant rearranging all the plumbing. It would have cost him $40,000, and it's kind of a poster child for some of the things that are wrong in the county. So one of his customers told me what he was being asked to go through. He was also going to have to take 6 counter seats off his counter. His diner couldn't afford to lose 6 counter seats. He had gone to the inspector, he had gone to the inspector supervisor, said, I've been doing this for 40 years. He got nowhere. So I went to the inspector supervisor, and I said, you cannot do this. This has to be grandfathered. And sure enough, when they looked into it, they realized it had to be grandfathered. The problem with this is A, why would somebody make an existing business undergo those kind of changes when they've been operating and you didn't shut it down last year? Why would you shut it down this year? And the second question is, why did a council member have to go to a department head to get somebody to look at this and make the right decision? That should never have happened.
All right, Mr. Elrich, thank you. All right, now we're going to go back to Ms. Florine with question 2. The county faces several significant issues such as the school system's capacity and achievement gap, traffic congestion, constrained budgets, and questions about how to manage development. What do you see as the single most challenging issue facing our county over the next 4 years? And please include, if you will, how you would endeavor to tackle the issue.
Well, to pay for what we need to deliver. $2.5 billion school system, that's not going to, where the costs really aren't going to go down much. To deliver on transportation solutions that are not cheap, to deliver on preserving our quality of life. I'm going to prioritize, as I said earlier, how we undertake economic development. I'm going to be out there supporting our small businesses. I'll tell you a real quick story. I met with David Blair when he first decided to run for county executive. Now, I say what I think, and I said to David, so why are you doing this? Why are you doing this? I've never seen you before. Why the heck are you in this race? And he had one of the best answers I ever heard, which was, I've never seen you. And I think that captures Montgomery County's approach to how we support our business community, how we make people feel about being welcomed and supported. I'm not going to put together a 2-year task force to tell me what's wrong with permitting and review. I spent a lot of time talking to people, and we're looking at the plan already and how we fix this. This is not a mystery. We do not have to have paralysis by analysis. That's our history. Let's have a task force. Let's find out. All of a sudden, it is true. I've been doing this for some time, and I am acutely aware of what the business community feels about how we make them feel, how they want to invest, how they feel dumped on, how they don't feel valued. You got to a
On
nonprofit
TV, we have to
event.
get a little rap in our ear.
Okay, you go to a nonprofit event and you see who's supporting our nonprofit community. It's the business community.
Thank you. All right, Mr. Ficker.
Thank you. I'm the only candidate here who does not live in the Tacoma Park trapezoid. My two opponents live in it. All 4 Democratic at-large candidates live in the Tacoma Park trapezoid. The district, Mr. Hucker, the council member, he lives in it. The chairman of the county council lives in it. Congressman Raskin lives in it. The chairman of the National Democratic Party, Mr. Perez, lives in the Tacoma Park trapezoid. What is it? It's an area only 4.1% of Montgomery County's land area. Those folks love to raise your taxes. I live in Boyd's. I drive I-270 every day, and we are going to improve, guaranteed, I-270. I'm going to be in Pete Ron's office the Wednesday after the election and say, Pete, let's get to work. I hope you didn't party last night. We're starting to work for the commuters and the travelers in Montgomery County. Nothing has been done. We haven't been moving. The council took M83 out of the works. I'm going to put it in the capital improvement program. We're going to get Montgomery County moving again. I'm the only one up here who can work in a friendly way with Governor Hogan. We're going to start moving, and we're going to be successful in Montgomery County.
All right, Mr. Elrich. You're next. What do you see as the single most challenging issue facing our county over the next 4 years, and how would you tackle the issue?
Look, any solution that we're going to talk about costs money. And I think money is the biggest problem facing the county over the next 4 years. And I've talked to Bob Buchanan, I've talked to other business leaders. Nobody believes that you can grow anything fast enough to outrun the rising needs in this county and the relatively level tax base. And you need to look for other things to do. Now, I do think that we need to get more out of development to support infrastructure in this county. And I think we need a different way of doing it, because right now with impact taxes, if you pay an impact tax in Bethesda, there's no guarantee that that money will go to a project in Bethesda or fix anything in Bethesda. And there are things that Virginia does that are different, which is focus on taxing districts, where the taxes from the district stay in the district and they build projects in the district, and they don't get levied until you're building a project. And so I think Virginia has some things on us that we actually seriously need to look at. The other thing we need to do, though, is if you're actually going to deal with the financial issue, you need to do something with the county government. And I've talked with the unions because they're the major players in this, and they're willing to work with the county government to resize the county government. We need to think about how we work, and we need to become more efficient. We need to apply systems like what they do with the Six Sigmas, or what DC government did when they brought in their consultant under Mayor Gray, and look at how you reshape your local government to make it more efficient and more cost effective. And if the unions are willing to help you do this, you need to be willing to work with the unions. There's almost no place else in the country where I can put union people next to me and they say they'll help me reshape the county government.
All right, let's do rebuttals. I know there's some interest in that. You both can have them. You as well, Mr. Elrich. 45 seconds, Ms. Florian.
Really? We're going to have the unions decide how we operate? Really? I respect our union folks. They are hardworking and they deliver great services and they have valuable perspectives. But they're not going to determine how I run Montgomery County, and they shouldn't, because they're the most costly elements of our operation. I think we can address county costs by attrition. I think we can address county costs to a certain degree by improving our IT program, which if you ask me, is nowhere where it needs to be. But honestly, it's beyond belief.
Mr. Fick.
These two folks voted themselves a self-serving 30% pay increase for the county council. That gave the unions idea, hey, we want increases too. My campaign is not being financed by a parallel union finance campaign. My campaign is not being financed by a parallel PAC campaign. I'm responsible only to you, and the unions are not calling my tune because they're not running a very expensive campaign right alongside of mine that I don't know anything about. I'm responsible only to small contributors, which is the spirit of the public financing law.
Mr. Elrich.
I'll just say, look, Nancy's comments show how little she understands about how people go about restructuring in the real world. Lockheed Martin and Toyota went about their restructuring by working with the workforce, because no one knew the work floor and the work processes better than their workers. And they worked with their workforce to redesign the workplace. And I got to tell you, when I came in and the economy collapsed, I shed 1,200 jobs in Montgomery County. The unions didn't raise a peep about that because there was no choice. We are heading into an era where there is no choice about what we do. And the unions understand that as well as you do. And with limited resources, people are going to lose jobs one way or the other. It is better to plan and build a more efficient county government than simply wait till the day when you run out of money and say, I'm taking 10% cuts across the county government.
All right, thank you. Next up, we're going to talk about growing the tax base. And Mr. Figger, we'll stagger it. We'll start with you. Here we go. 2 months ago, CNBC ranked Maryland as the 31st best place for business. It gave the state a C- in business friendliness, a C+ in economy, a D- in cost of doing business. While these grades are for the state overall, many Montgomery County businesses nod their heads in agreement. The Economic Development Department has been privatized. So what specific actions would you undertake to raise our grades right here at home in Montgomery County? Please exclude Amazon if you will. We'll discuss that in a later edition.
I hate to exclude Amazon because I spent a week out there looking at it. But I'll tell you this, between 2011 and 2016, of the 24 local jurisdictions in the Washington area, they added a net 13,939 business establishments over the same period Montgomery County can sell it anymore. And I listen to CNBC every day. What do new businesses want? They want certainty. They want certainty. They want certainty that they're not going to get a 156% increase in the residential energy tax, which these two folks voted for and said that it would be temporary for 2 years and then change their mind. That's not certainty. That's why Northrop Grumman took a hike. We don't want these tax increases, and I'm going to be very business friendly, get along with any business that comes in, and you're going to have our friend Ficker in the county executive's office building new businesses.
All right, Mr. Elrich, same question. What action would you undertake to raise our grades here at home and exclude Amazon?
So I'll go back to what I said in the beginning about reviewing our processes. We have made major changes in Department of Permitting Services, yet I continue to get letters from small businesses saying, if I'm going to open up, I'd rather open up in Frederick County, Howard County, than Montgomery County. I don't think we fully understand the extent of our regulations and the things we do, and we don't understand them compared to what other people do. So I think we need to figure out what has made us different, what has made us undesirable. And I think this is a state problem as well. And the state needs to ask themselves the same questions, because I hear major questions about requirements at the state level, requirements for bidding at the state level to keep small businesses out of the picture. We need to understand what the map is and we need to change it. It doesn't take 2 years to do that. You should be able to do this relatively quickly, and you should introduce changes to the county government relatively quickly. I think this is a serious problem, and I think we need to take it seriously. And if we just knew it, we would have done it already. And I think the fact we haven't done some of these things already speaks to how little we know about the environment we're dealing with. The other things I think we need to do is we need to figure out how do you support transitions for small businesses. It is difficult to release space. I have people who tell me they've got good rents on places, but the build out and fit out of the spaces is incredibly expensive. And that has to do with the code requirements coming up, the 2018 codes. Not everybody does it the way we do it. And that's another place I think we need to look for changes.
Ms. Florine, question goes to you now.
The tone of economic development and our future comes from the top, from the county executive. That's the most important thing. The county executive should not be in the position of having to write a letter to Amazon saying, oh, I'm really okay with business, don't be afraid. The head of the county should not have the track history that has created the business support that I have in this. The head of the county has to be the kind of person who will continue with our creative deal to attract jobs and businesses to the east part of the county, something that my colleague fought against. The county executive has to support things like the redevelopment of Silver Spring, again, something that my colleague opposed way back when, or keep fighting against. The county executive has to advance our transportation initiatives with a strong objective. Still fight about the ICC, the Montrose Parkway, still fights going on with some. The county executive has to set the tone for our future. We have a great opportunity. The county executive needs to be out there, supporting our business community, making them feel welcome. Certainly, regulatory fixes have to be fixed. And absolutely, unions will need to be part of that conversation. But at the end of the day, it is the tone, it's the direction of having a let's get it done approach. Not finding more studies, not finding more analysis, not finding more arguments.
Any rebuttals? Mr. Elrich.
Yeah, I wrote the letter to Amazon because I heard people associated with your campaign going around publicly saying that I wouldn't support the Amazon deal. I thought that was wrong. I thought it was destructive. I thought if we were trying to get Amazon, considering I supported the Amazon project from when it was introduced, it was not useful to put out there that somebody from the county, who might be county executive, would undo the deal. So I wanted to clarify it since my statements alone weren't enough to do it. And I want to talk about, you want to talk about Silver Spring. I supported the redevelopment in Silver Spring. They got built in Silver Spring. Yes, I opposed the mega mall, with the giant water slide and everything else, which the county walked away from because the developer asked for far too much subsidy. But the project that got built in Silver Spring was basically the project I actually advocated for. So I take pride in what's in Silver Spring, and I take some ownership of what happened.
And with that, go ahead.
Yeah, well, this was about small businesses, and I just want to ask you folks, are you ready? Are you ready for Amateti? There's Ed Amateti. He's the only Republican that really has a chance to get elected to the county council, and all we need is one vote on that county council so that the council can't unanimously pass a property tax increase. Get ready for Amateti. We won't have property tax increases that are driving out our businesses.
Ms. Florine, rebuttal or pass? Go ahead. Pass?
Pass.
Okay. All right, up next, Mr. Elrich, you're first on this one. In 2016, the council unanimously passed a recordation tax increase. GCAR disagreed. Having gone through that process, what did you learn? If the county needs to raise revenue during your term as county executive, where will your proposed budget find that money? Would you increase recordation or transfer taxes again?
I don't plan on sending over a budget that requires a tax increase. I don't think, with all due respect to Robin and Mr. Amateti, there are votes on the council to do a tax increase, whether there's Republican on the council or not. Because I've read what other people on the council, other candidates have to say about this. So I'm going to live within our means. And the reason why I'm focusing on restructuring the county government is if you can't grow it fast enough, which we can't, and you can't do a tax increase, which we won't, then if I've got a $5 billion plus budget, I need to find the resources inside the money I have. And if I'm going to maintain services and maintain the quality of life that you all expect the county to maintain, I have to look at the dollars we're spending now and figure out how we're going to go spend those dollars better. And I think we can do that. I absolutely believe we can do that. And I tell you what I talked about this at Leisure World a while ago, and I said, you know, at the end of what I said, people were looking at me, and I was like, you know, if I was the CEO of a corporation, and I told you I was going to restructure the corporation and make it run better, everybody would stand up and applaud. But the moment you're in government and you say you're going to do this, people say, you've got unions, you're not going to do that. I just don't believe that. I think everybody lives in the real world. We're encountering real budgets with real limitations, and we're going to do the things we have to do. I can't save enough money on toilet paper and toner to preserve the jobs we have in the county today. So I'm going to take a realistic approach about how we deal with this.
All right, Ms. Florine is next. Once again, if the county needs to raise revenue during your term, where would your proposed budget find the money? And would you increase recordation transfer taxes again?
You know, I'm the one who's introduced the tax credit program for our seniors. I'm very proud of that. This was enabled by the state a couple of years ago. We have had a lot of our senior residents who are actually paying less now in property taxes than they were going to. I'm the one actually, in your real estate property tax bill, you'll see, I think it's a $692 credit you get against your local home property taxes. I'm the one who got the council to undertake that. I think it was 2005. I've been very worried about our tax rates. There were years when we were forced, because of constraints in the economy, to look at increases in the energy tax. I would like to propose a reduction. I lost that vote about 3 times on the county council. I voted against the budget periodically because of that. We'll see if we have the votes to do that again. I think there are ways to make this all work, apart from dealing with natural attrition and IT improvements in how services are delivered when we don't need face-to-face work. What I'm committed to doing is actually sitting down with the superintendent of schools before the school's budget is proposed, and talk about what we really can afford and how we can get there. I've talked to Jack Smith about this. I am optimistic about having a real partnership with the Board of Education. I started that 2 years ago when I was council president, created a landmark agreement that the council supported, and so did the Board of Ed, and I'm going to move that further. Thank you.
Mr. Ficker.
I'm going to look after your wallet. My opponents in this race don't tell the truth about raising taxes. So why should you believe them in answer to this question? They said the 156% increase in the county residential energy tax was going to be temporary. It wasn't temporary. We are in trouble with our Montgomery County budget. They took $75 million out of the health benefits fund to level their budget. The county debt has increased at 5 times the rate of inflation over the last 10 years. And let's talk about Kerwin. They don't mention Kerwin. You know what Kerwin is? That's going to be a recapitulation of the county education spending formulas that we get from the state. The state allows each county so much money based on a formula. And there is going to be a big money grab right after this election to diminish, if they're increasing others, they're going to diminish Montgomery County's state education funding by $100 million. And these folks would look for tax increases to make it up. I testified, I was there with you, against the increase in the real estate transfer tax. They voted for it. They were wrong.
Mr. Ficker, thank you. Any rebuttals? Ms. Florine.
Well, I want to say one thing about the Kerwin Commission. It is true, I believe, that Montgomery County will have a big target on its back going into the next year's General Assembly session because people in Annapolis still think our streets are paved with gold. I intend to spend a lot of time there working with whoever's in the gubernatorial seat and with our leaders in Annapolis to make sure that that does not happen. Montgomery County's future is at risk to the extent that we're dealing with school construction, resources, and teacher obligations. And historically, that comes back to hurt us. I'm going to make sure that that does not happen going forward.
Any more rebuttals? Mr. Eldridge.
Just so everybody understands the school situation, we deal with the maintenance of effort budget. So we have to increase the budget every year for inflation and student growth. So Dr. Smith may be able to control what he spends above maintenance of effort, but you can pretty much guarantee that as long as there's inflation in this county continues to grow, that school budget is going to go up, and it's going to go up against constrained resources, which is why I talk about dealing with this problem another way. The Kerwin Commission, it's going to cost us more than $100 million if it goes through the way it was originally proposed, but it looks like what they're going to do is send the funding to the legislature to deal with, and we, all of us, have to put all the effort we can to make sure we do not land with that bill on our backs, because $100 or $200 million is going to be devastating to Montgomery County.
We done? All right, we'll move on. And Ms. Florine, this one will start with you. Since you mentioned Annapolis, why don't we go there for a moment? County Executive Leggett has often stayed out of the fray in Annapolis, while his deputies, department heads, and Office of Intergovernmental Affairs stay active in the State House. Next year, there will be significant turnover in our county delegation. How will you interact with our delegation, our governor, and the rest of the state to benefit Montgomery County? What specifically do you want to bring home to the county from the General Assembly session?
Well, as I alluded to earlier, we got a lot in the line. And we need a county executive who can reach across party lines and talk to the leadership. We have significant challenges being respected. And are you following me?
You're standing right in front of me for every question.
I don't mean to.
I think she was just trying to be center, as we have media folks here in the middle.
That's called body language.
May I begin again? May I begin again? I I did
Yes.
not, that was not intentional.
Yeah. Why don't we start in a minute? We're ready.
Okay, as I was saying, one thing I did 2 years ago when I was council president is spending a lot of time in Annapolis. Our delegation has not always felt supported by the county executive, and I think that's a real challenge. We need to make our delegation stronger and put them in a position to fight for us when those hard votes come up at midnight. When Annapolis says, oh, Montgomery County, you're so liberal, we're going to take it out on you some other way. And that has happened time and time again. As I said, we need a county executive who can talk to the other party. Because they're in Annapolis. I've been there. I've been shouted down by people from the Eastern Shore who think we're disrespectful of their needs. And that's why I'm actually running this kind of race. I'm running a unique campaign, people, because I'm actually talking to everybody. Not just the regular Democrats, but the regular independents, the regular Republicans. Because what we need to be is nonpartisan and non-polarized as we go forward. We have enough of that at the federal level. God help us what's happening today. But we, the local level, are different. We're smarter than that, and we can work together across party lines to make things happen for our people.
All right, Mr. Quickly, you're up next. And I'll just say, just to respect your opinion, maybe if when we're standing here, we can do it in front of the table, so our press can get shots and you're not blocked. Okay, go ahead, take it away.
I'm glad there are going to be some changes in our Montgomery County delegation because we have 18% of the state's students, 40% of the state's new students, and over the last 10 years, we've gotten 12% of the state's school construction money. During that time, the Montgomery County delegation voted in 2013 to give Baltimore City $20 million in extra money for each of the next 30 years. And why didn't they look after Montgomery County in such a way? I'm going to give them a big pep talk. Robin loves Larry. Robin gets along really well with Larry Hogan. His dad and I were good friends, and we're going to have a great relationship. I'm the only candidate here who indeed was in the legislature. I was elected. I was the only Republican on the ballot in District 15 for any office that won that year. When I was in the legislature, we had 15 Republicans out of 141. And I used to give Speaker Cardin fits because I knew all the parliamentary rules. We're going to work very well with the legislature. I'm going to work very well with my pal Larry, and we're going to bring home some road construction money. We're going to improve I-270, and we're going to get a fairer share of school construction, and we're going to do better than getting 25 cents back for every dollar we send to Annapolis.
All right, thank you, Mr. Cook. Ms. Miller, I was going to repeat the last part of the question. How will you interact with our delegation, our governor, the rest of the state to benefit the county? And what specifically do you want to bring home to the county from the assembly session?
So I'm going to spend a lot more time in Annapolis than we've been spending in Annapolis. I've already met with a number of our delegates and the leadership in our delegation. And I've asked them, I said, what do you need out of the county executive? What do you expect me to do? Where do you think the points are that we could be more effective than we've been? Because I really believe we need to work more with the delegation. The county needs to do a better job of laying out what it wants the delegation to bring home, because it's an issue they raise with us that we're not always clear about what we're trying to accomplish. So we need to be absolutely clear about what we're trying to accomplish in Annapolis. I've actually worked with Secretary Holt. I brought 2 housing programs back to Montgomery County that the state was implementing in other parts of the state. I met with Holt, I met with people in his office, and I asked if they can do these projects here. I put them together with the county executive and with Clarence Snuggs, and we had a signing a couple of years ago of bringing these programs to Montgomery County. I've already talked with the transportation people about how to deal with the problem of the CCT, because we know they pulled the CCT out of the budget. They said the way we've designed it, and they're probably right if you want to be objective about it, it's not a very good service, and they want to see this thing straightened out. So I've talked with them about ways to straighten this out that would address their concerns, and they said if we can straighten it out, this project can go back in the budget, but it has to provide the rapid transit that if we expect them to make the investment, the transit has to be rapid. So I'm already working with the governor's office. If he's the next governor, I'll continue working, and I'm already working with our state delegates.
All right, rebuttal.
It looks like we're going to be getting a new Speaker of the House of Delegates, okay? The present Speaker, Mr. Bush, has serious health problems. I've heard that people from Baltimore, Maggie McIntosh, that a delegate from Prince George's County is thinking of running for that job. Montgomery County legislators have been kind of shy and hanging back. I'm generally not that way. I am pushing David Moon of the Montgomery County delegation to be the first Speaker of the House of Delegates from Montgomery County since 1929. When you see David Moon, tell him that he's running for Speaker to bring something back to Montgomery County, the goodwill and all the other things they bring back. David Moon for Speaker.
Thank you. Any more rebuttals? All right, moving on to transportation. Mr. Ficker, we're going to start with you since we're staggering it. You're up next. There's a mix of projects in the 6-year transportation capital improvement project, but some major priorities are not. In particular, transit projects like BRT, the CCT, the Bicycle Master Plan, roads like the M83, and a majorly underfunded resurfacing budget. You all have ambitious plans to get the county moving. What would you add and what would you cut in the 6-year CIP to further your goals? Be specific with projects and revenue streams should they be needed for your ideas.
Well, I would certainly support M83, which the Tacoma Park Trapezoid has opposed, saying that building it will violate the Paris Accord. I've got literature from 2002 which said that 45,000 people are coming to Clarksburg. We need M83. 30,000 of them are now here. We still don't have M83. And these folks have led the fight to not have M83. We're going to have M83 if it's the only transportation project in the capital improvement budget. But I'm going to go to these Tacoma Park Trapezoid folks and I'll say, look, I'd like M83. What would you like? And we're going to work out some bartering, some trading. I'm in court every day. I do negotiating. Most of my cases are, I win a lot of jury trials, but most of them are negotiated. I'm going to negotiate with the Tacoma Park Trapezoid and we're going to build M83, even though it may violate the Paris Accord.
All right, Mr. Elbridge, you're next.
I'm going to redraw the boundaries of the trapezoid so that I can include Robin's house, wherever they may be, in the trapezoid. Look, I'll be blunt. I never supported M83, but what I do support doing is 2 reversible lanes on I-270, which we ought to do now. We've written a letter to State Highway about looking at recapturing the inside shoulder lane on I-270 today and making that the HOV lane and adding another through lane on I-270, which you could do in very short order. And the state's actually thought about things like that. That would be one quick way of getting additional capacity onto I-270, which we desperately need. But you only need it in one direction. You don't need it in both directions at the same time. I enjoyed driving up here this morning and looking at the line of cars that was totally backed up going south, and we were moving, we could have done any speed we really wanted to do had we had no regard for the speed limit, which we did not do. I support taking 355 and actually making it 5 lanes from Stringtown all the way down to Montgomery Village Avenue, making one of the lanes reversible, so you have 3 lanes out of Clarksburg in the morning, 3 lanes into Clarksburg, get rid of the pinch point where the school is, where the stupid road goes down to 2 lanes, and why nobody has noticed this before and chosen to fix it. I've asked to put this into our priority projects because I think that's absolutely important, and I would move the BRT forward. The Washington Post wrote a long story the other day about business leaders in the region talking about our terrible bus system. I proposed a solution 10 years ago.
Okay, Ms. Florine, same question to you, the last portion again. What would you add and what would you cut in the 6-year capital improvement project to further your goals? And be specific if you can.
Thank you. I think, I agree that M83 has been long neglected. The Upper County has been long neglected. And Mr. Ficker, actually, I'm the one who's lost that vote time and time again on M83. Can we afford it? It's an expensive project, but we can get started talking about it, that's for sure. Look, to do BRT, we need way more density along those stretches of roadways to justify, to warrant the huge expense and disruption that will occur. Is that going to happen anytime soon? I don't think so. We have other priorities in Montgomery County. I absolutely do believe through a regional transportation authority, we can think bigger, particularly, as I said earlier, about extending bus rapid transit up, just not on Route 29 alone, but up to our neighbors. Why don't we work together for a change? Our people don't stay in one place. We work with each other, and we need to also extend that kind of transit and reversible lanes up until to Frederick City. We're going to need to work, excuse me, Mr. Worker. We're going to need to work with the governor and the state in terms of extending the study that's going on for 270, because the real problem for Montgomery County is not just what happens below the interchange here at San Mike, but what's coming down from Washington County. That's the big issue for us. How do we move forward collectively together?
Thank you, Ms. Florine. You raised your hand first,
Yes.
45 seconds, sir.
I'd like
and
to
then Ms.
rebut
Florine.
that. Take a look at the League of Women Voters questionnaire, which is now online. Take a look at the answers to transportation written there by my two opponents. Neither answer, neither one of them mentions widening I-270. Neither one of them mentions improving I-270. They both mention the BRT. I don't think you folks want to spend your time on a bus. You've got a nice car. We need lots of road improvements. And I disagree with my good friend Larry. I believe that the section of I-270 from Montgomery Village to Clarksburg should be in the present study, not in a future study.
Thank you, Mr. Elbridge.
I'd agree with Roger. I agree with Robin on the last one. I'll say something about BRT. You know, this organization has supported BRT because you recognize it provides the missing connectivity between communities in Montgomery County. You can't fix every transportation problem on I-270. You can speed people to the exits on I-270 in the Beltway. You can't get off and you can't get onto the roads. So you need a transit system that actually unburdens some of the roads. One of the things that's innovative about my BRT approach is I use a lot of single reversible lanes, which lets you use median strips, right-of-ways that already exist. Doesn't require you to build the thing out to double lane, incredibly expensive system. I tried to design a system that was affordable and buildable, and we have to do this. Otherwise, none of you are moving anywhere. Again, go back and read the Washington Post article from a few days ago.
Ms. Florine, are you passing on rebuttal?
Yeah, I've said things.
Okay. All right, next question, my former colleagues in the media. It's the Amazon question. Here we go. Mr. Elbridge, we'll start with you. After the primary, you wrote to Amazon to assure them that you would stand 100% behind the commitments that our current county executive, Mr. Leggett, has made to Amazon. But many of your supporters have publicly opposed these commitments. If Amazon chooses Montgomery County, how would you work to convince those who oppose the move that it's the best way forward for our county? Also, please feel free to outline your economic development pitch. 90 seconds.
You're asking two very different things. Look, I thought the Amazon proposal made sense when I saw the governor's package. We're talking about $2 billion for transportation in Montgomery County. If I developed White Flint under the current plan, I could put 11 million square feet there. The state would give us Bupkis. You guys know the number equivalent to Bupkis. There would be nothing coming to the county if we developed the normal way. The only way we're getting this money, much like the only way we're getting the money from Metro, is Amazon. And it's hard to look $2 billion that would build major BRT lines to feed Whitefoot, that would add a third track on Marks that would run out to West Virginia, which would provide a way of unloading some of the traffic on the I-270 corridor, and improvements on Metro and improvements on the Beltway, so you can get off the Beltway or I-270 and go north on 355. It is hard to look a package like that in its face and say no. It is major benefits to Montgomery County. Are there issues with Amazon? Housing is one issue, but the plans of Rockville for housing along Rockville Pike should be able to absorb a lot of the housing that Amazon will require. And they're talking about 3,000 to 5,000 jobs a year over 15 years. This is not an insurmountable problem. Schools are the biggest issue, and I've asked both Hogan's people and the Ben Jealous campaign to focus on getting us money for schools, because we're going to put people over there. This is one of the most crowded and over capacity parts of the county. We need money for the capital. So I've supported this. I think it makes sense, and my supporters know I support it.
If I may, with permission from GCAR, let me just give 30 more seconds to each candidate just on this question. So if we can do 30 more seconds.
So, we all have supporters who want different things sometimes than the things that, that we're advocating for. And I've been real blunt with the people who support me that I think this is important enough and manageable enough and worth it to Montgomery County. So yeah, there'll be some people who aren't happy with that, but there are always people who aren't happy with everything you do. That's just the life of being in politics. I really do think that the benefits outweigh the negatives, and I think this is something that's going to work and actually be good for Montgomery County.
All right, Mr. Elrich, thank you. Ms. Florine, you're up next. GCAR has worded the question differently for you, and you can answer it. And Mr. Ficker, you both have the same question. It was just slightly different for Mr. Elrich. So here you go. Amazon will choose Montgomery County for headquarters too, or won't it? Either way, and regardless of where it ends up, economic development will have to move forward. In the event Amazon goes elsewhere, Mr. Ficker and Ms. Florine, please outline your economic development pitch. How do we attract other businesses like Amazon, or create the right environment for the next Amazon to come here to Montgomery County? You're up first, 2 minutes.
Thank you. Well, I think this is really a major part of my portfolio and our future. I think Amazon is waiting to see what happens with our election. And the real issue is who's going to stand by the commitments that have been made by the governor. Because that's where the money is, and that's where Montgomery County residents stand to benefit the most. If those dollars go away, if we do not have a really strong partnership with who's ever in the governor's office to offer incentives to the next Amazon, to Google, I think Apple's looking for another space. We actually created a streamlined approach for very large businesses that seek to locate here. And at the last minute, when we heard Apple was interested, we changed the rules a tad to include them as part of a business incentive program that we're putting in place in Montgomery County. And people have said to me, well, why just the big guys? Really? Good point. Why just the big guys? Why are we only catering to large, ginormous companies? Why don't we look at streamlining our processes to invite the smaller ones? It's certainly true we have a lot of empty office space that needs to be built, and that's a key initiative that I will be working on as we move forward. How do we create incentives? We already have something called the MOVE program that adds value to a business's decision to locate within existing space that we have today. But the question is, who are we going to have for the future? How are we going to make people feel that Montgomery County is the place to be? How do we compete with our neighbors across the river? Always a challenge. We have to work together collaboratively throughout the region to remind the rest of the world, frankly, and certainly throughout the region, that Montgomery County is the place to be, that we will be welcoming to the moon.
All right, Ms. Florine, thank you. Mr. Ficker, same question to you, the last portion again. Outline your economic development pitch. How do we attract other businesses like Amazon, or create the right environment for the next Amazon to come here to the county?
Well, I'm not going to talk about Amazon as though it's past tense. I don't like the way Montgomery County is treating Amazon. I don't like the way Montgomery County is treating Apple. We have a $4 billion pension fund in Montgomery County. We have a $1 billion health benefits fund. Guess how much of that fund is invested in Amazon stock, which we're spending billions to bring Amazon here? 0.3% in Amazon stock, which increased 75% over the last year, and even more than that over the last 10 years, much more than that, and 0.15% in Apple stock. Ever hear of Warren Buffett? That's Apple is the stock where he's increased his holding more than any other over the past year. So why are we treating Amazon and Apple so poorly in our pension funds and health benefits funds? I'm not talking about the next Amazon. I'm talking about this Amazon HQ2. I'm not taking a defeatist Amazon attitude. BFF. BFF, what does that stand for? Bezos' friendship with Ficker. That's what it stands for. And I took the trouble to go out to Seattle and visit more than 20 Amazon buildings, including the Globes, including the banana stand, including the Whole Foods, and I met with 50 Amazon employees at the Seattle Seahawks game as well, and they want freedom. They don't want regulation. They don't want tax increases. And Jeff, come on down. Robin is BFF with you. We're going to land Amazon HQ2, and they're going to like it so much here, they're going to move Amazon HQ1 to Lake Forest.
Thank you, Mr. Ficker. My reporter colleagues have a quote. They can use it. All right, Ms. Florine, you've signaled for a rebuttal.
Point of clarification, we're not spending billions at all to attract Amazon, so that's a fact. And I am just grateful that Mr. Ficker found the time to have a nice vacation, along with the many Montgomery County residents who I am sure enjoyed the pleasures of Seattle summertime at the Seahawks game. And I am sure that the Apple receptionists were the Amazon receptionists were very nice to Mr. Ficker.
Any other rebuttals? Okay, moving on. And Ms. Florine, we're going to start with you on this one. In a recent blog post, Planning Board Chair Casey Anderson recently wrote about the real estate market and projected county growth. He concluded that over the next 5 years, the county is expected to fall short by about a third of its necessary additional units. This situation, Anderson writes, makes it harder for employers to attract and retain workers they need, burdens middle and lower income people with higher housing costs, and ultimately makes everyone pay more money for lower quality housing. How do you plan to tackle our housing shortfall in Montgomery County? And we're back to 90 seconds.
Okay, thank you very much for that one. This is an area that I spent a lot of time working on. Actually, we're just finishing the work on updating our rules and making it easier and creating more incentives to get more affordable housing produced in Montgomery County. An area where there's a serious disagreement about among some of us is how do we honestly face this issue? The issue is, if you ask any expert in the housing field, how do you address the affordable housing issue? You create more housing. That's what they all say. So I've been proud of the work that I've been part of on the council to find ways to create incentives and to encourage housing production in good places. I do not demonize people who build that housing. We're partners in creating affordable housing here in Montgomery County. We're partners with the development industry. They're actually the ones who build this stuff, not us, the private sector. So how do we create those partnerships going forward? How do we create great places for people of fewer resources? I do not view construction along the Purple Line as something that is a detriment to that community. Last I looked, people who have few resources want to live in a great place just like everybody else. So how do we create that mix? Through a positive attitude and the right incentives to make it happen.
Ms. Florine, thank you. Mr. Ficker, you're up next.
Well, one thing I have learned in a lifetime of being here in Montgomery County is that every other person knows more about at least one subject than I do. And I'm going to hold open hours at 6 a.m. every Monday morning where people can come in, first come, first serve, and give me their ideas as to how to make our country, our county #1. So come on down Monday morning, give me your ideas. I'm not going to raise your taxes, which I think has been a problem with building more housing. I'm the only candidate up on this stage, despite what Mark says, because he's taken some contributions from developers which were multiplied under the public financing system. I haven't taken any, but I am not going to load up developers with the great big fees that he wants to load them up with. I'm going to treat developers very friendly. I've never met a developer that I didn't like, but I've never met anyone else in Montgomery County that I didn't like either, and I know what fairness is. I know what discrimination is. I know what fairness is. I don't have to form a committee to know that. We need more housing in Montgomery County, and there are units that you can build for $150,000 and put them down in certain areas of the county that won't disrupt the neighborhood too much. I'm for building more housing, and I'm going to do it in a friendly way that doesn't load up developers with big fees.
Thank you, Mr. Ficker. Again, how do you plan to tackle our housing shortfall, Mr. Elwood?
Well, one thing is not to get rid of existing affordable housing. The difference we had in the Bethesda plan was that Park and Planning said not to rezone the properties on Bradley and Battery. It said do not get rid of the existing affordable housing because you can't replace it. And I oppose putting the extra density on the edges where affordable housing existed and said if you could do 4 million square feet, do it in the core, do it where it's closest to Metro, do it where it's going on top of existing commercial property, so every new unit is net new. And you get more housing, affordable housing in Bethesda if you add new units and you keep the units you had. I asked Gwen Wright during the process, are we going to have more affordable housing in Bethesda when this plan is built out than we have today? And the answer was no. That's a problem when you're supposed to be doing 20-year plans for the future of Montgomery County, when you know you're going to have more people needing more affordable housing, and the plan itself, if it gets built, results in reduction of affordable housing. So I think you have to maintain affordable housing where it is. Yes, you should let people stay there to enjoy it. This is why I opposed rezoning all the low-density apartments along Langley Park and behind White Oak, because that's where poor people live. Let those units stay there and focus the development on the shopping centers, not on the existing neighborhoods. So I think we need to be careful about what we do. We need to be thoughtful. The last thing I'll say is the county doesn't build housing. If they need 6,000 units, the county's not going to build housing. That's a function of the private sector, and we're zoned for it. So the question is, why aren't people building the housing we're zoned to build?
This is an important point of distinction between us, and I think people need to understand it, although it's a little in the weeds. At the end of the day, when you create disincentives to investment under the laws of economics, people disinvest. That's what happens. When we have reinvestment, we get new units, they're better, and actually, they're price controlled. We know going into the future that those existing units where someone has not been allowed to make a reinvestment, what they do, at most, they're going to add those granite countertops, jack up the price, and throw the people up. So how do you think creatively about moving into the future? You have to be realistic, and there's an economics 101 issue here in terms of how we move forward to create the right incentives in the right place.
Rebuttal, Mr. Elwood.
So the interesting thing is, after I raised the issue in Tacoma Park, Long Branch, when I raised the issue in White Oak, I wasn't rebutted by the planning board. They withdrew their recommendation. And planning staff our staff said, we don't understand fully the implications of this because the poor people who live there, who are largely immigrants, aren't coming back. They're not getting that housing if it gets refurbished. And if I do 15% MPDUs and obliterate whole neighborhoods of housing, you're not getting those folks back. It is a fiction to think that this is a do-gooder, you're just going to rebuild this housing, and then the poor people are coming back into it. They're not coming back into it. Preserve what you've got and build on shopping centers and other places where there's not a competition for housing.
Thank you. Mr. Ficker, the next question goes to you, and for anyone checking their watches or their phones, we're down to the final 2 questions before closing remarks. Mr. Ficker, we're talking about school boundaries. Too many county schools are at or far over capacity, and the problem is only being made worse as the county grows. Greater Washington recently found that despite overcapacity, schools across our county, 1/4 of our elementary schools, were underutilized in capacity. The county executive has no official MCPS oversight role, as you know, but our school enrollment does affect how and where the county develops. How would you propose the school system tackle these issues? And do you believe a county-wide redrawing of school boundary lines is necessary?
Keep one thing in mind, it's that I love little kids. If you look at the Facebook picture, I'm the candidate that has 2 little kids in his picture. And I am going to do anything I can to make sure that our little kids are treated fairly, that they get a good education, that they are challenged, and that they become booming successes. I'm behind every little child in Montgomery County. We have got to have adequate school construction money coming back. The council voted to increase your real estate transfer tax, saying that it was going to go to school construction, right? Then they grabbed $5 million of that to use as legal fees to fight the Silver Spring Transit Center fight that was their own making to begin with, paying certain of their favorite lawyers $550 an hour with the money they got from raising your real estate transfer taxes when they had 40 lawyers in the county attorney's office that they were already paying. So watch out when these folks get your money to build housing, because it's not going to housing, it's going to all these other things on the Christmas tree.
Thank you, Mr. Ficker. Mr. Elridge, once again, I'll give you a portion of the question. Yes, it was a big one. But how would you propose how would you propose to tackle the overcapacity in our school systems? And do you believe a countywide redrawing of school boundary lines is necessary?
So I wrote a letter to Dr. Smith when they were doing the current Bethesda plan, because Bethesda Elementary is overcrowded. And once again, I think for the 5th or 6th or 7th or 8th year in the row, the county projections miraculously were wrong. They projected Bethesda Elementary would drop to 613. It's at 655. I raised the issue of taking the new apartments that are going up at Bethesda, and rather than trying to build an addition which they could not put on the school, they knew it wasn't big enough for the number of kids coming there, and rather than building a new school, look at capacity adjacent to or close to it. It turns out there's actually an elementary school in the very same cluster that has capacity where the kids in the new apartments could have gone. Would have been no disruption to existing people in the community, would have been no disruption to people who haven't moved into their apartments already, and it was a school in the BCC cluster. I think we've got to look at adjacency. We've got to look, I saw a map, it was a heat map of the schools. You could see where the overcrowded ones were and where the ones that had space were. It looked like there were a lot of things that were very much in close proximity. There are ways you can deal with it. You might be able to move, you can adjust boundaries. You can also do what was done in some of the neighborhoods in Silver Spring, where you do K-2 schools and 3-5 schools. And so you have a school which draws from a slightly larger area and it does K-2, and you have a school that draws from that same area and does the 3-5. You get the integration, you get a better utilization of space in the schools, and I think we need to be more creative about doing this.
All right, Mr. Elbridge, thank you.
Yes.
Ms. Florine, let me just read that portion of the question again. Our school enrollment does affect how and where the county develops. How would you propose to tackle the capacity issues at schools, and do you believe a countywide redrawing of school boundary lines is needed?
Well, I think we need to do a lot of things. As I said earlier, I'd be putting more money into school construction. That's a big issue for our residents countywide. I think the issue of how we address challenges needs to be looked at thoughtfully. We've got empty office buildings. We have unused school facilities. We have school facilities being used as office facilities for the school system and other users. I think we need to reevaluate how we handle existing buildings as well while we look at capacity issues. Interesting story in Bethesda magazine, bless them, they raised an issue. This current version out there, September, October, follows up on comments I made when we approved the Board of Education's budget. And that is how we address, really, it's the perception of equity within our school system. I think there are assumptions about different schools that are incorrect. Do people know about the awards that Wheaton High School is winning? Do people know what cool stuff is happening at Northwood? Do people know what's going on at Einstein? I don't think so. And our challenge is helping our residents understand what options are available within the school system and making sure that every kid has a great opportunity to be successful. That also involves creating vocational paths. Not everyone's going to go to college, remember? And making sure that real jobs are available for our young people as we go forward, working with Montgomery College and our universities of shape.
Ms. Florine, thank you. Rebuttal request, Mr. Fisher.
As county executive, I'm going to be working for you 24/7, and I'm going to go to those school board meetings. I'm not going to participate. I'm going to be there listening, be on top of what's going on. There's been only one federal injunction against the Montgomery County School Board to keep them from closing a school. I was the attorney in that case and received that injunction to keep them from closing Silver Spring Intermediate School. We're closing unnecessary schools in Montgomery County. We're closing schools unnecessarily that we're going to need later on. I was also the attorney to stop the annexation of the Johnson property into Gaithersburg, where it was being annexed, even though it touched Gaithersburg by a point which would deliver a lot more, hundreds of new students into schools in Gaithersburg that were already overcrowded.
Thank you, Mr. Fisher. Any rebuttals? Okay, last question. We did pretty well here this afternoon, huh? We'll start with you, Mr. Elbridge. It's, I think, a fairly easy one. It's a short question. I don't even have to look. Why did you choose Tacoma Park to buy your home? Why that part of the county?
So, I grew up in Silver Spring. I was actually born in pretty close to what's called Tacoma, D.C. So I haven't wandered very far. I would have gone to Coolidge High School if I had stayed there all the way through. So I grew up off of Forest Glen Road. I liked Silver Spring. I liked the down county. I got a rental when I first moved into Tacoma Park, and it was a nice house. It fit my family pretty well. And I actually saw a lot for sale in Tacoma Park, and it was an R40 lot where you could build two houses. And so I talked to a friend of mine, and we said, well, we don't mind living next to each other. So we built a two-family house. There aren't many R40 lots in the county. We built a two-family house. It's attached, each of us bumped out little pantries off our kitchens, and the 10-foot wall joins both of our houses. And I liked it, and I liked it because it was heavily integrated. We knew the schools were integrated, and I wanted my kid to go to what I thought was one of the most diverse, be in one of the most diverse communities, and go to some of the most diverse schools in the county. And so I really felt comfortable there. I knew a little bit about it from when I was in college because I had friends there. So it always seemed like it was nicely located. It was close to Silver Spring. It had, I thought a lot of character. It had a lot of tree cover. I wound up now living on Slager Peak Parkway, which, couldn't be more beautiful. So I feel I picked a pretty nice place and a pretty diverse place to live. And if you look at my family, the diversity fits what my family looks like now.
Thank you, Mr. Elridge. Ms. Florine, same question to you, but Garrett Park, correct?
Yes.
All right, why Garrett Park?
By Garrett Park. Well, let me tell you, our criteria for where we lived involved access to Metro. Actually, our first house was in downtown Silver Spring. That's where I made some history when I challenged the construction of a building across the street from me, which they unwisely started right when I'd come home from the hospital with my second child, which was extremely annoying. Access to Metro and Garrett Park too. We can walk, and it's a great community, engaged, they're full of spirit, lots of arguments. I was honored to be mayor there. And I worked on, actually there was a long time where I approved all the building permits in Garrett Park. Because community is everything. And that's really what we want all together, right? To live in a place where we can feel engaged, where we can have access to decision makers, where regardless of what party we're associated with, we can feel that we're part of the process. That's what I hope to offer to everybody, what I will be offering to everybody as we move forward. Because we are all together in this. We are very different, but at the end, we're the same. We want great schools. We want a leafy experience to the extent we can have it. We want accessibility to transportation. We want the same things. Mostly, what we want is a future for our kids. And that's who we are as a community. And that's what I'm going to deliver.
All right, Mr. Ficker. Back to Jeff Bezos. No, I'm kidding. Let's talk about why you chose Boys.
I chose Boys because it's a nice place to live. It's near Sugarloaf Mountain. It's on a main bike route. And I just want to make clear here that I am not criticizing my opponents because they live in Tacoma Park or Garrett Park. I'm criticizing them because their policies have resulted in us being parked. We're parked on I-270. We're not moving. And I think that that little Tacoma Park trapezoid where they live is overrepresented in the county government. We need some diversity. We need fresh ideas. We need up-county people having a say. And I'm an up-county person, and we look at things differently. If you want to put a scarecrow in the Ag Reserve, you don't put it in Tacoma Park. You put it in the Ag Reserve. That's where I live. We need people from other parts of the county and our county government: Rockville, Damascus, Albany, Gaithersburg, Germantown, Boys, Bethesda, Chevy Chase, Darnestown, Potomac. We need somebody else in the county government besides the Tacoma Park trapezoid.
And with that, we'll conclude with our closing remarks. Since we started with Ms. Florine, we'll start on the other end with Mr. Elridge. 3 minutes.
Thank you. So I want to, again, thank everybody for being here. And I worked hard to win that election. And it was not an easy task to win that election. But I attribute it to people telling me you won by 77 votes. And I thanked a lot of people, because there are a lot of people who wrote letters, emails, made phone calls. And a lot of people got me the 77 votes. So I'd say the author of that, there were probably 1,000 authors of winning. I think the county faces an inflection point, and I really do think we need to change. And I think we need something more complex than just saying I'm the person who supports the development community. That's not the same thing as supporting the business community. We have not done a good job, and frankly, we don't have much different records over the years when it comes to businesses as opposed to development. And it is two very different things. I think that, as we go forward, we have to figure out how we really do run this county better. There is a lot of money in $5.5 billion, and I don't have to tell you that. And to look externally or hope that things happen, whether it's that the state legislature suddenly lavishes with money, or the governor suddenly discovers Montgomery County lavishes with money and not an election year. We need, I think, to look internally at what we've done with the county government. And I think we can do a better job. And I think that, if you look at the people who support me, you'll see a pretty diverse group. I mean, Nancy likes to say that, I wasn't council president and they chose her. I'll just say my colleagues, our colleagues, chose me for county executive. Everyone but one. County executive supports me. The entire congressional delegation, Sarbanes, Jamie Raskin, David Trump is a candidate. David and I don't always agree about things. David Blair, who I ran against, supports me. I've offered him a place in the transition, and I'm going to use him when I'm county executive. I'm going to bring him into a place in the county government because I think he adds value. And I listen to other people, and I want other people, and I want a diverse group of people around me. I'm supported by unions, but also supported by virtually every environmental group, almost every social justice group that there is. And they do that for a reason. And I think, this election is more complex than one issue. And I think people who've worked with me know that I'll work hard, that I listen to people, that I'm inclusive. I've been accused when I introduced legislation of changing my legislation, and I would respond to some of my colleagues who said, why do you change it? And I say, I change it because I had a public hearing. And I learned something that made me think about what I was doing, and I wanted to change it. So I assure you, you all will have access. I will work with the realtors, and I'm going to work with the whole community. And I'll give you the best representation that you can possibly have because you deserve the best representation that you can possibly have. And again, thank you all for coming out and listening today.
Mark likes to list his endorsements. I haven't heard him list anyone or any group that supported term limits before the term limits election. It's the same 29%. 70% of the voters voted for change. He personifies no change. He's been there 12 years. In 2000, I put term limits on the ballot. It got 46%. In 2004, I put it on the ballot. It got 48.5%. In 2015, I took a poll, the poll Ike Leggett saw when he decided he wasn't going to run again, and it showed that my term limits proposal was getting 60%. Then, Mark was the deciding vote. If he had voted the other way, the property tax increase would have been 1.8%. He voted wrong. Big effect. We had a 9% property tax increase, and that jumped the term limits vote up to 70%. That was a vote for change. It was not a vote to promote people whose record was rejected on the council. It was a vote for someone new. It was a vote for someone, perhaps, and we made the issue that 3 of your 4 at-large council members live in the Tacoma Park trapezoid. Same thing again. It was a vote for representation of other parts of the county, which I'm going to give you. I have vast experience in the county. I've been to almost every house in the county at one point or another. I've won 2 Super Bowls with the property tax question that saved the average homeowner over $10,000 in property taxes by requiring a unanimous vote. And the other Super Bowl, or Stanley Cup, was the term limits question, where instead of having 4 council members running for 6 council members running for 4 at-large seats in the Democratic primary, we had 33 or 34. The Post said it was like a dam burst. Well, let's keep it bursting. Let's keep moving up. Let's not go back. Let's move ahead. Let's bring in Amazon. Amazon is not going to come here if Mark is county executive. They're putting off their decision until after the election. Let's bring in that employer with $50,000, $100,000 jobs with a lot of upward mobiles, and Montgomery County is going, the whole county is going to be upward mobile.
Thank you, Mr. Ficker. Ms. Florian.
Well, thank you very much for spending the morning with us. I think you've gotten a sense of who we are. And as I said at the get-go, this is a pivotal election, and it's up to you all. It's up to Montgomery County. What direction do you want to go? Do you want to have experienced, seasoned leadership? Do you want creativity in big picture issues? Do you want real solutions by someone who's been around the block? That's the question for us all. Do you want to argue about the past? Well, okay. People like to argue about that. There are legitimate issues out there. But how do we move forward? We move forward together. We move forward across party lines. We move forward with vision. I haven't heard that from anybody else. We're not going to rearrange all the deck chairs in the county government. We're going to be nimble. We're going to be creative. And we're going to do the next best thing. Because for Montgomery County, we have long been in the shadow in the region. We have more to offer. We have so many smart people here, so many highly educated members of our community, all of whom need to be engaged and part of our future. This is about us moving forward together, bringing great jobs to Montgomery County, making sure that our schools are what they need to be, making sure that everybody who lives in every corner of Montgomery County feels like their kid has a true opportunity to be the very best. That takes leadership from the top. That takes collaboration from the top. That takes working with Annapolis and the governor from the top. I'm looking forward to leading us all. We are going to do it. I look forward to your support come early voting and November 6th. This is a big one, people. Let's bring it home. Thank you very much.